Welcome to Behind the Build. I'm your host, Jonathan Jacobs. Today I have with me, how am I going to describe who I've got with me? I mean, you've already read it in the liner notes, but other than that, I'm going to say, I have with me today someone who has been in this industry for quite some time. Turns out has some common connections. Upon having lunch, we're able to reminisce both on career and personal life and all the rest of it, and I'm excited to be able to share all of that with you as you listen. So today I have with me Marti Gallucci from Mason Studio. Marti, thanks for joining.
Great. Thanks so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here, sitting in this cool pod in the backyard. Sun is shining and conversation is great.
Before we get into the conversation, I want to take a moment to thank Kaplan's Appliances. They are one of our foundational partners on the podcast. And as we head into the holidays, I find myself thinking less about products and more about moments. And the kitchen becomes the place where everything happens. It's where bread is baked, pies come out of the oven, and a roast is slow cooking all afternoon. Vegetables are grilled, steaks are searing, produce is prepped for a big shared salad, or a soup is simmering that warms you up on a cold day. Those moments are usually surrounded by family and friends, people gathering, helping, tasting, talking, and staying longer than planned. And whether we think about it or not, the appliances in that space can make or break that experience. When things work properly, when ovens are consistent, refrigeration keeps ingredients at their best, and cooking surfaces respond to the way you expect them to, the focus stays where it should be, on the food and the people around it. What I appreciate about Kaplan's is that they understand that connection. They don't just think about appliances as individual pieces, but as part of a kitchen that supports how people actually live, cook, and come together. Their team understands how these decisions fit into bigger picture of a home, especially when timing, coordination, and reliability really matter. If you're planning a renovation or new build, or even thinking ahead to how your kitchen supports those moments with the people you care about most, Kaplan's is a great place to start. If you want to learn more, email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan, @waldenhomes.ca, and I'll be happy to connect you with their team. Now, back to the conversation. So yeah, obviously, Marti, I want to thank you for coming. You are living, you said, in Stouffville?
That's right.
Yeah. And you grew up there.
Stouffville area, yeah. A little bit in Stouffville, a little bit in Goodwood and Uxbridge.
Yeah.
So
Right.
say Goodwood,
right, yeah.
Goodwood for the main part of my life. Out in the country, 100 acres,
Amazing.
Living the life in dirt and soil and all that fun stuff.
So for those that don't know, this Toronto or surrounding area, this region that you grew up is about, 45 minutes northeast?
Yeah,
right?
About 45 minutes to an hour northeast of here.
Okay.
Yeah, just north of Markham.
And I didn't even talk about it. I mountain bike.
Oh.
I would go to Durham Forest all the time. So
Yeah.
the Goodwood area has that incredible bakery that everyone loves to go to.
Yes.
Isn't it? Right?
Nina's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Didn't know that I was going to go there. Man, they have some good pastries.
They sure do. Yeah, it's definitely a terrible but delicious little pit stop on the way out.
Okay, so let's get into kind of your road to where you are. Your early life.
Great.
You grew up in the Goodwood area, and what did it look like for you growing up? Were you always a creative, or what were your interests like?
You know what? I don't know if I was always a creative. I think I'd like to say yes. I think my kind of life growing up, you're never, there's always so much kind of going on around, and so many influences from different family and friends and wherever you are. I feel like I was always kind of adaptable to all sorts of things, and I was lucky to have a life that I could kind of test and try every kind of thing that maybe was of interest or I wanted to, or friends were doing, or things like that. So I think what I did always come back to, though, was sort of a creative side. I think there's the circle of athletics and things like that. That was a huge part of my life.
What was that? What were you into?
Uh, oh my gosh, so many things.
What weren't you into?
All right. Well, no, I'll talk about what I was into. Skating, both figure skating and then later hockey.
Yeah.
Hockey was a huge part of my life, actually, like throughout elementary and high school.
Okay.
Skiing, snowboarding, baseball.
But on hockey, were you playing? Were you playing rep? Were you playing
Yeah.
single A, double A?
Rep hockey, so
Yeah.
kind of the highest level.
Yeah.
Before you kind of go to university or
Yeah.
things like that on scholarships or whatever. But the kind of creative side always prevailed, I think,
Okay.
when it came to kind of continuing in a direction. But yeah, it was actually really interesting. It's kind of a digression from maybe this, but
No,
I
it's
remember
not a
in
digression. This is you and then eventually studio. Go ahead.
I think just to speak to the quality and caliber of sport was, I forget what year it was. I was in probably grade 12. Oh my gosh, what year was that? 2008, 2007. Okay. And Team China wanted to practice hockey or playing against teams here in North America for the Olympics. So Team China actually played here in Ontario, and our team kind of played against them as kind of a trial run
to see how good they were against a Canadian team.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were part of a tournament that we were in, and it was just kind of like one of those moments and kind of milestones or kind of accomplishments in life, and like, I've gotten to this level and we're playing with, Olympic level players and things like that. So,
and do you still play?
Cool. I haven't, but I have really, really been thinking about getting back to it. Just kind of a fun recreational women's league or something. Just, growing up in Uxbridge and Goodwood, it's such a small town, and, it's an opportunity to get together with friends again and things like that. So
I don't mean to have glazed over and jump into that question from what you just said. I can't say that I ever played against any form of like international athletes. That's pretty special.
Yeah. It was a big kind of fun moment and exciting time.
Very cool. And have you traveled to other countries when you were younger, or had you traveled to other countries when you were younger playing, or have you ever gone? You talked about skiing, snowboarding. Have you gone on any ski snowboard trips?
No, not until more recently, to be honest. I mean, we've gone to like the Blue Mountains and things like that when we were younger. But my parents owned their own business, so it wasn't always easy to travel and leave. And it was, retail and service. So, 6 days a week, it was hard to get away. So, we didn't go like too many places. The funny things were kind of going to dealer meetings. So my parents, as I mentioned, they had a power sports dealership, and every year there'd be kind of a different destination where all the dealers would go and get together, and they'd launch the new products for the year, and it was so much fun as a kid, though.
I would imagine
going on those trips, and that was probably a highlight of kind of our travel when I was younger. But now that I'm older and kids and everything, I feel like we've almost traveled more though with kids.
Oh, really?
You have the time while you're on maternity leave, maybe a little bit, and have family that can travel with us too, which makes it a little easier to go places. And I feel like through my 20s that was like a high period of travel.
Where were your I'm moving away from that, but where were your dealer meetings? Are they in Canada or are they in the US?
In the US.
Okay.
Yeah. Mostly Florida.
Yeah.
I think Texas, Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of just locations like that.
Yeah. So it was really cool as a kid to be able to go and see these completely like exotic locations comparatively to
oh my gosh, when I was a kid I was like, Florida, what is this place?
Palm trees? There's alligators?
What are these pools and outdoor pools like in the winter that we can go to? This is
90 Fahrenheit right now. This is incredible. Yeah. Okay. And okay, so you're at that stage of life, you're involved in your sports and you're liking that you have this opportunity with your parents to be able to go and experience like this other world.
Yeah.
And what were your interests at that time, both, maybe in school and out of school, in terms of harnessing your creative side?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what did that look like? Or was it not there yet?
Definitely in high school, I think it was there. I didn't know that I wanted to go into interior design. To be honest, I didn't even really know that was a thing, like interior design. You hear of interior decorating, and that is its own thing, and also a great career and an important part of interior design, but it's one component. So I always thought I actually wanted to be an architect and get into architecture. I think flashing back to like history and family and kind of what led to this, my grandpa, so my mom's dad, he was a really cool guy. Actually, he had such vision, kind of creativity. I guess one little story, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mossport or Mossport, the racetrack. So he used to go there back in the day, and he always had this like awesome vision of like what it could be. He wanted it to be this place where families could get together. It wasn't just about racing, but it was like a place you could go for the weekend. You could kind of escape. You could rent these cabins. There would be accommodations. There would be food. There would be activities and events and things like that. So he had actually worked with, I think, an architect and then kind of an artist to create these drawings for like the vision of Mossport.
Yeah.
And we actually came across them maybe like 15 years ago, and like these original drawings of like these beautiful like landscapes with this like meandering track and like
cool.
Illustrations of like what the cabins would look like and what the main kind of chalet would look like, where people would gather. And then through my life, he had helped us, like my parents, renovate their house. So my parents bought this like old 78 farmhouse in Goodwood on 100 acres. And, it was a total dump. It was just like the most disgusting place. They obviously had vision and knew, this is the right decision for what we want to do. It was helpful for their business, being in the power sports industry, to have all this acreage, but also like to raise our kids. And, it's a nice little community. And, so my grandpa, he was retired at the time, so he helped kind of take everything apart, totally demolish the interior, rebuild it. And so I think I was, a part of that and exposed to like the construction side too, and kind of, some decision making as to like what goes here, what goes there, and things like that. So I think there's.
Do you remember? Do you have any fond memories of the conversations that you'd have had together while that was happening? I realize that they asked that question, I could be drawing upon a part of your memory that hasn't really thought about this in some time. So
yeah, that's a really great question. I think there's a small detail that I remember about in that upper portion of the house. It was like a story and a half. So we had these, vaulted or kind of pitch ceilings on the second level. And so we had this opportunity for this really high ceiling height, above the closets and areas like that, of like, what should we do with this? How should we, make use of this space? Mm-hmm. And so we came up with this, little plan to create these like little cupboards kind of up there, which were ultimately used for storage. But we would crawl up there as kids, and like they'd be kind of like hangouts for us. And it would be, I don't know, these like little niches. And I don't know, like there was just kind of one thing that came to mind, but just thinking about how to design and like make use of space and kind of maximize the potential
or what could be lost to us, right?
Yeah.
Picking it up. When's the last time you thought about that?
Oh, I don't know. It's been a while. Lots of other things have been in the way
back, right?
Yeah, have regressed that memory a bit. But yeah, it was such a fun part, and just like building.
Yeah.
I just remember like being like on the floor and putting in like the base of like the kitchen island, and just even like the smell of that memory, like the freshly cut 2x4 and the screw going into the wood, just like that feeling. And I don't know, there's just so many kind of layers to it. And that kind of settle in your memory. And
well, when the senses are engaged, right? When you're a kid.
Oh yeah.
Like that, you're talking about like deep roots that are going to become a part of who you are.
Yeah. I think that's, I'm sure we'll get to it, but a huge part of what we do as, interior designers, as a a broad kind of industry, but, specifically in our studio, ensuring that all the senses are considered, not just kind of the visual kind of end result, but what else are you feeling and what else can we tap into to create that memory.
Okay. So sounds like you had a strong relationship with your grandfather and your parents.
Yeah.
Continue to. We'll get there in a little bit. So what did it look like for you when you were looking to apply for school? Did you have an idea at that stage that this was a contemplation of a potential career, or were you still contemplating or looking at something else?
No, I was pretty certain that I wanted to get into architecture in high school, taking certain courses and classes that would kind of help with that. Also working in a co-op. So I worked at an architecture firm for, part of a semester as well, just to kind of get exposure to that. So I was pretty confident in, what I wanted to do and get into.
Yeah.
So I applied to different schools for architecture, and I actually didn't get accepted to the architecture program, but I was accepted to the program at Carleton, which was kind of what I had understood to be kind of a precursor to the architecture program at Carleton University. So it was a history and theory of architecture.
Okay. So
it was kind of like, we don't think you're qualified, but you might have potential. It kind of seemed like that. And it was like, okay, well, I'm still interested in this. I want to pursue it. So I'm going to go into this program and, hopefully I'll really enjoy it. And then those can be applied to the following year and I can get into the architecture program from there.
Right.
So I went to school in Ottawa, and I really enjoyed actually history and theory of architecture. It was amazing. And I think, along the way, I also learned what interior design was and learned about the program at Ryerson. I didn't realize that, a university offered a degree in interior design. And so once I understood what that was, it was kind of like an aha moment of like, okay, this makes sense. Like, this is what I want to do. I think, architecture, I think still would have been a great career for me. Something that I think about still. It's like, oh, I wish I could just, create the drawings for this and kind of have it all integrated into one. But ultimately, interior design really is such a blend of everything, and getting to collaborate with architects and engineers and landscape architects and artists and everything, and develop with or like alongside all those people. And so yeah, I think it took a year, I guess, to figure that out. And I think that's actually totally normal and common. It's hard to kind of know exactly what you're going to do coming out of high school.
I've said that to a bunch of people. Like, how am I going to be a teenager trying to determine what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
For sure.
Now, I don't know what I'm doing this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was actually perfect too, because, I went to Carleton, I lived in residence. I kind of had this like great fun year before going to Ryerson and finding out the intensity in which the study and the program was. I've never spent so many kind of late nights or all-nighters or, being so stressed out, I guess, as a student as I was at Ryerson. So I'm kind of glad I got that stuff out of the way first before I kind of put my head down and really got to work. There.
And what the program at Ryerson was a 4-year program, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And were you there with anyone else that had transferred from the Carleton program, or were you you were on your own again?
Yeah, on my own again.
And did you know anyone that was in this program at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't know anyone.
And did you know anyone at the Carleton program when you went to it?
Nope.
Okay.
No one from my high school went into either of those schools, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was kind of fun. I mean, I'm a fairly social person, so it was just kind of fun to get to know new people and kind of make new friends. And, I still have friends from Carleton University, even though I was only there a year. And still have tons of friends from Ryerson as well. And, great core group of friends that we still get together, and we've all kind of grown and gone in different directions within kind of the interior design umbrella or outside of it. But it's a great place to get an education, to jump into a career, and to create some lasting friendships.
And being somewhere new. My wife and I, this is kind of shameless, but whatever, I'll say it anyways, but we just rewatched the first episode of 90210.
Oh, nice. and
and you realize, like, first how bad it was, but also how great it was, how bad it was. But what was really funny is that Brenda, here I am dropping Brenda's name in the middle of this, but she's like, we're at a new school. I could be anyone. I don't know anyone, which is like one of those niceties when you grow up and you think that your world is what your small little world is.
Yeah.
And then you go to a university for the first time and it's so far beyond what you would have expected. And you see how many people there are and they're all the same age.
Yeah.
And
all with such different perspectives.
Yeah.
And just, you just learn so much, not only from what you're studying, but just people.
Yeah. And what other people's experiences are like. Okay. So,
yeah.
And I don't mean to like go too far into that, but it's really just about the idea of you're out there taking a chance on yourself to better your prospective future without your support group. And I've spoken to a lot of people about doing this, but I guess one of the reasons I'm bringing it up with you specifically is because I also know the region that you were growing up in. It's not like a crazy huge area. Like there's, everyone.
Very small town.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone knows everyone.
Right. So you all know, not only do you know, like, each other's families and like, you just kind of know everything. Yeah. So to move away from that, I mean, you just said it. No one else went there. So I don't take something. Okay. Sorry. I'm just, calling it out as I see.
Yeah.
I don't like moving past certain big things in someone's life before just establishing that. Okay. Sorry. So
that's okay.
So you finish your 4-year program at Ryerson, which I also understand, having spoken to others, is a really challenging program.
Yeah. So challenging and fun and eye-opening. There's a good kind of practical side to it, but also a really great kind of experimental side to it. And I think you could kind of like flex that in any which way you wanted there as well. And there would be, great receipt of that, I think, from the professors. And I think it was exciting for them too, knowing, this isn't kind of real quite yet. So let your imaginations run wild and come up with, the craziest thing you can think of. And, I think about that. And one of my 4th-year projects was this floating orb that would travel between towns and cities in the Northwest Territories as kind of this like cultural community hub that would kind of touch down in different areas. And it was, far-fetched. I mean, maybe not, as we were talking about before. Yeah. But, it was just like, it was so fun to create this and, think about these kind of outlandish things at the time. But I think that's totally necessary. And I feel like that's even something that we do today in studio. It's like, let's just throw out the wildest
ideas,
impractical ideas, because the greatest things come out of that. The greatest ideas, and kind of digging into things a little deeper and kind of understanding the reason for why do we need this, or what made you think of this, or what's the issue or kind of question that we need to ask here, or issue that we need to solve. But yeah, I think that was kind of something that really stood out to me as kind of a memory from that school is just like that there's no cap to what you could create and think of there. And then also the, practical and hands-on side of it too. I mean, there was a wood shop there, and I mean, now there's like a 3D kind of workshop, and there's all these like great new tools and technology that you can use, and so you're able to create like tangible, real things. And there were so many directions that you could go from there too. And whatever idea that was, I remember one of my classmates, I think her thesis was like actually a recording. It wasn't even like anything architectural, but it was this recording that you would listen to, and I forget what it talked about, but it was just something that, didn't feel like interior design necessarily, but is also so connected in some way. But there's just such diversity in that, and I think still is kind of in under the interior design umbrella, and
Right.
and where it can go and what we can create and who we can collaborate with and things like that. So beyond kind of the standard of architects, engineers, landscape designers, but there's just such a multitude of cross collaboration that can happen.
So how did you establish where you wanted to go when you were done? Were you finished your 4-year degree? You've got a portfolio with you now.
Mm-hmm. So, I had worked at a couple, firms during school.
Yeah.
Like while I was studying, both during the semester, part-time, and then during the summers. And, as we talked about before, there's someone that I work with that you've also interviewed on this podcast.
Hi, Nadine.
Nadine, I'm just going to say it, Nadine Rajani, who we worked with, in my early studies. And, she had a huge impact on kind of me and kind of teaching me her knowledge, and not just her knowledge, but she just had such a great way of communicating and being calm and inquisitive. And I feel like that's not something that's always taught necessarily in school either. But it's just that real world practice and kind of absorbing and communicating and talking to people. So in my 4th year, another friend that I had worked with, also with Nadine, she was a little bit older than me. Like, we didn't ever overlap at Ryerson. I think she had graduated when I was coming in. And so she was friends with Ashley and Stanley, who had just kind of started Mason's Studio. And I remember seeing something that they had done, some sort of installation. I think it was actually at IDS one year. They did an installation there in one of the shipping containers. And it was just so cool. And I think, as a student, you're kind of experiencing this show, and, IDS can be kind of standard in a way. It's, the vendors and, people there. But then this one exhibition had all of these shipping containers, and different interior designers created these different experiences within it. And, they had this one, I think it was called Our Home in Native Land or something like that. And it kind of attached to kind of, I think, sort of a Canadian identity, but in a very kind of subtle way. Kind of going back to, they had, I'm just remembering, like a cauldron kind of thing that was on a swing arm that went over like this idea of like a fireplace thing for like cooking. And then that was connected to a table for this idea of gathering and kind of socialization. And then there was also a water feature that came out of that. And it was just like a very sensory kind of experience. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I told my friend, I was like, do you know who these people are, right? Like, can you introduce me? And then I ended up meeting them, I think, once at another show. And it was kind of like that moment of like, oh my God, hi, I love what you do. I love your work. And then I had sent them a portfolio or something like that. And then followed up and had an interview, and, ended up kind of having a long interview because it was just so fun to like talk to them. And, they had so many great questions and things like that too. I think I also tend to ramble when I get nervous too. So it was probably just a lot of rambling on my part. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, when's this girl gonna go? But anyways, they ended up hiring me as an intern. So I started working there during my 4th year, and then joined them full time upon graduation. And I was their first employee, and I guess
that's pretty cool.
Haven't looked back since.
Before we continue, I want to pause for a moment, because later in this conversation, you'll hear Marti talk about a new project she's beginning to think about for her family. And when someone with her background starts looking at a personal project, the process is very deliberate. They went to see the Doors, one of our partners and they are a European window and door supplier. She spent time with the product in person, not looking at images or specs, but actually experiencing the doors and how they work and the operation of the windows, opening them, closing them, understanding the weight, the construction, the detailing, the U values. With years of experience in design and execution, Marty can immediately tell the difference between real quality and something that simply looks good on paper. Windows and doors are one of those elements you interact with every single day. You feel them, you hear them, or you don't, and they quietly shape how a space performs and how it feels over time. When they're done well, they elevate the entire home. And that's what the Doors understands. Their focus on European craftsmanship, performance, and precision stands up to professional scrutiny and long term use, not just first impressions. If you're planning a project and want to understand the difference for yourself, seeing the product firsthand matters. If you want like an introduction, well, email me. It's Jonathan, Jonathan at waldenhomes.ca, and I'm happy to get you in touch with their team. Now, let's go back to the conversation with Marty. That's wild. So the studio is how old now?
We're about 15 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So first employee, still there 15 years later.
Yeah. So I've been there for about 13 years.
13 years. Okay. So
yeah.
13 years later.
Yeah. Because they had kind of been around for a little bit before I joined, a couple of years. And then, yeah.
So you get the job as the intern. Fantastic. Do you remember what it was like when you started full-time after the internship?
I'm trying to remember like what my first official day was like. I don't think it was much different really, because it was just being there more frequently.
But I guess what I'm alluding to is at this stage, you now know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
You know the people.
Mm-hmm.
I know that as a young professional, when you're starting out, like when you sign your first contract to go work somewhere, there's like that butterfly sensation.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you say that, because I was just going through some papers the other day, kind of filing things, going through old stuff. And I came across my very first contract with Mason Studio. And it was just so funny. I did have kind of a flashback of like, oh my gosh, this is like my first like official job and like the first kind of foray into my career. And, it was a big moment.
Yeah, there you are right now, reliving it in your mind.
Yeah.
And I say this because it's funny. So I was talking a while back with an architect out of London, England. His name is Magnus Strong.
Mm-hmm.
And Magnus was explaining to me how he sometimes struggles to celebrate the small minutia of victories or the small little things that are good that are happening in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I've been around a lot of people that can be of the same mindset. They're so focused on on driving the path forward,
right,
that you're forgetting the steps that you're dealing with right now that are actually helping you walk across the water, because you've now put these rocks down that are going to become the foundation of that path.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say this because you clearly are someone that likes to take a split second and enjoy that path.
Yeah.
And I haven't known you for very long, but I just saw it when you were thinking right now.
Right.
Because what that has ultimately led to, and well, I'm sure we'll get there, but why don't you say it? So right now, just as a snippet going forward, 13 years, how many people are now at the practice?
We are a team of about 25 people.
Thank you. So there you go. So we just talked about those rocks.
Right.
So now going back. So you start out, the studio's only been around for 2 years. You're the first employee. And what do the projects and scale of projects look like? What does the office look like in terms of, whether it's software, whether it's workstations, like, what does that all look like then? How was it for you?
It was just fun. And I mean, we still have so much fun, but we genuinely, like, we worked so hard and had so much fun and still do. So I guess, so we had a little studio in the Junction.
Yep.
In kind of this old industrial building. Our office wasn't very big. We actually shared it with a graphic designer at the time too. So we just kind of had these, desks and this big boardroom table, no like individual rooms. There was like a small kitchenette and a washroom within the suite, and just this big open space that we would all just kind of sit together, work together. I sat across from Trevor, who was the graphic designer in the office with us. And, it's funny thinking about the senses and just memory. I often think about the artist Beck, because I had never heard of him before. And Trevor loved listening to Beck. And I feel like that's just such a like soundtrack
to early office studio was like.
To early office studio. Yeah. And I sat on this like little wooden chair at this metal desk, and it wasn't anything fancy, but it was fun. It was hands-on. We built a lot of stuff in the studio, so it was actually kind of practical to have maybe a bit more of a sparse setup, because
what were you building?
So obviously we're interior designers focusing on interior spaces, but we also did a lot of exhibition work, still do.
Okay.
So during those days, that was kind of a big part of what we did, was just, to get out there, get our name kind of a bit more recognized, do super fun stuff. So, the kind of shipping container thing that I had mentioned that had really caught my eye. And I think that caught a lot of people's eyes as well. And that was always, I think, something that Ashley and Stan wanted to do, was also as a tool to engage with the community or different communities kind of throughout the city, whether it was us doing it or kind of incorporating others to be involved, collaborating with different shops, or, just finding opportunities to support one another and kind of celebrate what each other are doing. So what other kind of things did we do? Oh my gosh. Like
go ahead.
I remember for one exhibition, we got in all these like huge sheets of honeycomb cardboard, and we created these huge trees that we like cut out of the cardboard, and then assembled kind of in like a, like when you're young and you kind of cut out, they're like perforated kind of things that you'd like slip together to create a 3-dimensional object.
Yeah, of course.
So it was like that, but like large scale. So we built stuff like that. We had this really awesome exhibition at do you remember the Come Up to My Room exhibition at the Gladstone Hotel?
No.
So it was this awesome
I want to say yes
event where different designers, artists would take over a room in the Gladstone Hotel and develop it into some sort of experience or installation or a thing like that. So
I'd never heard of this.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's still on.
Okay,
but
still.
Anyways, that's kind of translated almost into like the Toronto Design Festival. But anyways, so we created this awesome installation. It was called Fall of the Walled Garden, and we love doing things with just everyday objects. It didn't have to be these fancy, expensive things. So we ended up buying these huge rolls of mesh that you would wrap around like packages and parcels that you were like shipping out in large quantities. So it was like this really like open, airy mesh. So what we did was create this inverted kind of landscape in the room of like all these like fringed kind of suspended panels of fabric. So it kind of like dipped down in the middle of the room, and in that kind of central dip there was an opening, and below that, so everything kind of hung down. So you kind of like when you go into the room, you'd kind of have to like crouch down to get under it.
Yeah.
We padded the floor and wrapped this cotton batting up the walls. So it was kind of this continuous kind of experience. So people would go in the room, you could sit around the perimeter, and then one person or a couple people would go to the center.
Yeah, and look at
you would sit on this box, and when someone sat on the box, it would engage this meditation kind of cycle. So I think we worked with another team called also collective, which is now tennis.
Yeah.
And so they developed the kind of tech side of it, and created this whole sequence and kind of circuit that would lead you on this kind of meditation experience. And then the lights would change colors and the sound would change the soundscape. And it was just like this really cool, kind of ethereal, connected, like everyone in the room, no one was talking.
Yeah.
They were just quiet, but you felt this sense of connection.
Yeah.
In
Like
the
an
space.
immersive experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. It turned out so well. And, we worked so hard on it, and, like we physically built it, which was also incredible. And I feel like that was one of like the early installations that we did that just made me understand the impact of kind of creating these inclusive, kind of immersive experiences that, I don't know, just have such lasting memory and create that sense of connection.
It's pretty amazing. So this is in some capacity also now part of the studio is
the
creation of all different kinds of.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's, we obviously get so excited about, interior design. We work in a whole multitude of realms, whether it be restaurants or hotels or private residences, retail, multi-unit residential. We have a broad spectrum of work, but the exhibition and installation kind of side.
It's the most creative, right? It allows you, because you're not going in any design direction for the client. You're doing it for your own creative expression.
Exactly.
It's completely different.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of kind of self-initiated projects, and that's also a huge part of our studio now. I mean, it always has been, but we're kind of adjusting the dials on what that means and how that translates into our projects too. It's also kind of a form of research in a way. Is okay, we want to explore X concept, so let's create something around this to kind of ask this question and see kind of what results we get back from it. So I think that, that's been really successful in how we can then adopt certain concepts into our projects. And so that's always going to be, a huge part of what we do in the studio. And, we've hosted different exhibitions within our studio, which we, is our place of work, but we also call it the cultural hub. So that's kind of a big facet of our studio. And
I want to ask you as you think for a sec, but I want to ask you also now about projects and the evolution of the projects over the time. You started out, were you involved at that time in hospitality or multi-res, or was it a lot more single family residential? What did it look like
when we started out?
When you started 13 years ago comparatively to where you are now, did you have as much variety then? And do you want to maintain the same level of variety at this stage? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, we've always had a good variety of projects. One of the first projects that I worked on was, I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh, this is such a trip down memory lane.
Woohoo!
I think we were finishing up a sales office for condos in the Junction.
Okay.
Which was, a really nice moment for, our studios there at the Junction.
Sure.
To create this sales office that's such a reflection of the community in which we work. It was I think it was called Duke.
Okay.
Which meant the DU was Dundas and then KE was Kiel. So Dundas and Kiel in the Junction. So, we had a little bit of that work. And then we got a project for a hotel in Ottawa, the Andaz Hotel. And that was one of the kind of bigger projects. I'm trying to remember what came ahead of that. But that was in 2013. So I think I joined officially in 2013. So it was probably in the later part of the year. But that was a big project. It was the common areas, so all the lobbies and kind of amenity spaces. There
Yeah.
were 2 restaurants in the building, one on the ground floor, one on the rooftop.
You guys did both restaurants?
We designed both restaurants. We
Wow.
designed the outdoor space at the rooftop of the
Wow.
hotel, all of the suites. So the whole thing
It's a huge
we
project.
designed. It was a huge project. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was, one of the bigger projects that I remember kind of being in the beginning.
And what were some of the key takeaways you would have had from a project like that you felt really changed any process or operation in the way that you were going to go look at putting together your design packages or your specifications or, your schedules or managing meetings? And I know that this is a relatively impromptu question, but that's where I go with it. I'm like, if this was early in your stage of your career at the practice, there had to have been a ton of learning opportunity from that.
Tons. So much learning opportunity for myself, but I think also for Ashley and Stanley as well. I mean, obviously they've worked in other firms and have done projects of the scale and bigger, but kind of translating that into our own thing and kind of adopting, how maybe we wanted to go about the project. I'm trying to think, one focus of that project was trying to work with, Canadian artists and furniture makers.
Okay.
So that was, a way of, this hotel being in the Byward Market in the capital, how do we celebrate Canada and, make it a Canadian hotel, but not in,
corny terms,
a corny kind of let's put flags and animals and all the quintessential Canadian things in here. How do we kind of step away from that and create this kind of subtle nod to everything? So we had the opportunity to incorporate art, as many projects do, into the hotel. And there's a guest room art package and then also the common area and kind of amenity art package. So we worked with Art Bank, which is in Ottawa, which is an art rental company essentially. So for X number of years you can rent this piece of artwork. They have an incredible collection and representation for Canadian artists. So that was a highlight, I think, looking back, being able to incorporate that into the hotel. But going back to the subtle nods, I mean, even in the guest rooms, we worked with different creators, kind of artisans. So MSDS Studio, we created some awesome ladder lights with them in the guest room. So they were these really cool copper kind of bars connected by this leather piece that was in the entry points of each of the rooms, as well as one single one over the headboard of the bedside. We worked with...
That's on their website, I think, isn't it?
Of MSDS?
Yeah. Is that
could be?
I think could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a custom creation for this project. We work with Derek McLeod to create some awesome kind of side tables and pendant lights. Again, these beautiful copper kind of spun pendant lights that would hover above the bedside table. So, the rooms weren't like super elaborate and kind of overly decorated and with material application, but there were very kind of strategic moments through the spaces that we wanted to celebrate. Again, craft, Canadian makers, those sorts of things. We had worked with Creative Matters as well to create these incredible tactile wall coverings, not only in the guest rooms as a headboard, which was, a practical application as well from an acoustic standpoint, from a materiality standpoint, because they were made from wool, they don't stain. So from an operations perspective, that was kind of a good placement and material to be applied there. But those were also used in the elevator corridors. So at the landing of every elevator on each kind of suite floor, there was this beautiful wool kind of wall covering that had this subtle kind of shading of the map of Canada. And so for every floor, the number of floors coincidentally correlated with the number of provinces and territories. So every floor was a different province or territory. So it kind of highlighted the different regions, but again, in a subtle way. It wasn't, something that hits you over the head when the elevator doors open up, but
That's
something,
a cool experience.
yeah, kind of subtle. And as you are there visiting the hotel, all these kind of moments are unveiled, or maybe you ask someone about something and they can tell you this little story about this. So, it was a great opportunity to incorporate that storytelling and celebration of craft and creativity through the hotel.
And so have you had similar types of, I'm assuming, I mean, you've been there for a long time now, but have you had similar types of experiences with other projects? Any that stand out to you as coming across with the same level of create? I mean, and this is almost, I don't mean to ask this question and take away from what all of the projects are, because they're all unique and they're all special, but there's always going to be something that's going to connect with you more than with someone else, right? Has there been another project that you can think of that really touches on some of the elements that you really value yourself?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, maybe to keep in the kind of realm of hospitality and kind of hotels, the other hotel that we've worked on a number of them, but the one here in Toronto, the Kimpton Hotel.
Okay.
The Kimpton St. George. So that project too, again, love to leverage the opportunity to bring in kind of as many kind of local makers, creators, artists as possible. So, and it helps, I think, down the line, again, for storytelling and marketing and things like that, when I think there's a great kind of pride and sense of connection and curiosity when you can understand, someone really thought about this and wanted to kind of share and celebrate, place, kind of local context. So for that hotel, for the St. George, for the common areas in the lobby, every piece of furniture in that kind of lobby area was also by a Canadian designer. And even further to that, some more local, being kind of Toronto craftspeople. So not to keep on kind of harping on the same thing, but I think there's a real opportunity to, again, work with as many people as we can to kind of mutually benefit one another and kind of celebrate what we have to offer.
Yeah.
So that was a great project too.
And so what does it look like in terms of you say before now that you're 25 people, and your projects are ranging across the board from single family res to multi-res to hospitality and installations and different types of scale of project. So how does the team work on individual projects? Or how many people would be assigned to a project, or what are the different roles look like internally? How do they evolve?
So things have, evolved over the years, over the last, 13 years that I've been there, or 15 years in the whole kind of cycle or life of Mason. In the early days, when there were maybe 3 of us or 5 of us, Ashley and Stanley would have kind of the creative direction, and they'd also be very hands-on. As a small business, you have to do that. So, we worked all very closely with one another, and it was kind of an all hands on deck, the full team in, kind of thing, and shifting to. So now our kind of scenario and setup of the studio, we have a team of 6 directors. So we have an executive director, a creative director, a design director, who's myself. We have a technical director of operations, and also a director of art and culture. So we have this incredible team of directors that, has such diverse backgrounds and skill sets and strengths and weaknesses. We talk about this all the time, where I am not the type of person that loves to take things across the finish line necessarily. I love to think about the ideas in the beginning. I love to ideate it. I could come up with 1,000 ideas for something, and then help kind of boil it down and distill it to this. But I don't necessarily love bringing it across the finish line.
Yes.
But then my colleague, our technical director, he loves to cross it off the list. He loves to get it done. And that's just the nature of, his role as a technical director and kind of figuring things out and understanding how it's going to work and how this will translate into drawings and be built. So we have this incredible dynamic between all of us where we're really covering all of the gaps and areas. So that's been really fun, kind of having this team. And then the rest of the team, we have kind of separated into the project designers and technical designers. So we all, again, are working on the project from start to finish. It's just at different points we're kind of dialing up or dialing down. So our project designers are, working on the project from the beginning. We're developing the concept, understanding the parameters of the project, kind of coming up with the the overall direction of the project. They're developing that through concept development, design development, and during design development, our technical team is starting to come in a bit more heavily to understand, okay, what's this here? Is this actually doable? Is what you're presenting and pitching to your client, is that actually feasible? Can you actually achieve that? So, we're starting to get feedback from the team there. And then we transfer it to our construction documentation phase where, the technical team is taking a lot of that, but still the design project designers are still involved in that. And then we're developing the specifications and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this, wonderful kind of network of these kind of two groups and kind of mindsets of people that just work so well together to develop and execute the project. And then, as I mentioned, we have our art and culture director, which stems to the side of our studio, or a portion of our studio now, which is art curation. So we have noticed, over the years, art is always an essential and critical part of any project. And whether that be a single piece or a whole art program, at the end of the day, it's always needed and something that we always want to include in our projects. And sadly, it's one of those things that is left till the end of the project. And if budget remains, or you're always kind of trying to fight to create something or kind of include something. So we've been trying to kind of work a little bit differently and incorporate that kind of art direction earlier on in the project.
Okay.
So they're working in parallel.
Yep.
So we're understanding, okay, as we're designing this area, we know that this needs this piece of art, whether it be sculpture, whether it be, handmade tile on a wall, or I don't know, a mobile hanging from the ceiling. We know maybe not exactly what it's going to look like, but we know that it needs to be there. Mm-hmm. It supports kind of the story and the purpose of the space, and then we can design for it. So we know that, okay, do we need extra structural integrity in the wall or the ceiling or the floor? Right. What kind of lighting do we need that will highlight this in the best way? So, and then also, making sure that it isn't kind of cut at the end, because a terrible, Home Depot painting on the wall of this beautiful space at the end of the day is going to take away so much from what's being created. Well, what they've spent so much money on already, right?
Good news is, in our area, before you hit the Home Depot, there's a Home Sense.
Oh, yeah. Hey, that's a good one, I think. I've heard lots of good stuff.
Love is where the home is, or something.
Yeah. Live, laugh, love.
Yeah, exactly.
What every project needs. But yeah, so we've kind of shifted our approach a little bit, and let's tackle this together and see how we can ensure that a great art program comes out on the other side.
Later in this conversation, not far from now, Marty talks about a new build she's beginning to think about in the countryside. And when I hear that, I immediately think about how landscape can shape experience not just visually, but physically and emotionally. Imagine a pool that doesn't feel imposed on the land, but instead feels like it's naturally ingrained within it. Something that gently rolls through a field framed by trees and subtle changes in elevation, where the transition into the water feels intuitive and safe. A Quanta pool specializes in biodesigned pool systems that allow for gradual entry with a tactile, non slip surface underfoot. It provides a sense of security as you walk in without the harsh rigidity often associated with concrete. The surface is infused with microban, a specialized material developed through very specific science that has proven impossible to replicate. What makes these systems especially compelling for the countryside build is their ability to accommodate up to 300% ground movement per foot. That means reduced concern about cracking or disrupting the subsurface of the land. Instead of fighting the landscape, the pool works with it, resulting in something that feels more like a natural body of water than a constructed object. Aquanta Pools is based here in Ontario and is the primary supplier of Italian biodesigned pools here in Ontario and Canada. Their systems support a wide range of water treatments, including ozone, saltwater, bromine, or chlorine, while still allowing for a completely custom pool. If you're thinking about a project where the pool should belong to the land it sits in, not dominate it, Aquanta Pools is worth understanding. If you want to learn more, feel free to send me an email. It's Jonathan, JONATHAN, at waldenhomes.ca. Now, let's get back to the conversation and the conclusion of my conversation here. Yeah, with Marty.
Again, where they're kind of supporting a great interior kind of needs to be paired with great art, great lighting, great everything. Like there's so much that, goes into it that you wouldn't want to sacrifice the
wall
end
finish, the
result.
ceiling finish, the floor finish, like all those elements
Yeah,
can play into whether or not it's going to either enhance or take away from the art that you're talking
absolutely.
about. So
Absolutely.
is it a level 5 finish if it's drywall, or
Mhm.
is it going to be a textured wall, or is
Yeah,
it going to be hardwood? Is it like what's there? That's
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we've done so many projects where we have this artist who's coming in to paint this mural. Like, how does that wall need to be prepared? Or, is it a plaster finish that's being applied that's actually created in an artist's studio and then it's unrolled on site? How does that get kind of fastened to the
Yeah.
wall?
And is it uplit? Is it downlit?
Yeah.
Is it sconces?
Yeah.
Is it a light wash? There's so many facets
Totally.
that can go into that.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're in design, obviously you can appreciate all this. But if you're not in design and you're listening to this, just understand that lighting and texture and all of the surfaces that go into all of this, all of it play a part in whether or not the art that you have is going to be a standout piece, or if it gets lost on the wall,
Yeah.
or as a something that's freestanding off of the floor, or if it's hung. There's a lot of thought that has to go into this. So integrating it from the beginning makes complete sense.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's often a lot of kind of fear associated with art in people's perception that, if you're working with a kind of an artist or like a curator, that it's going to be really expensive. But the one thing that our art director always says is, it doesn't matter if the piece is $5 or $5 million, or the budget you have is $5 or $5 million. We can work within those on that spectrum and find something that is unique and responsive to the project.
Mm-hmm.
But let's establish what is the budget, what is the kind of concept, what is the story that we're working with, and the placement and kind of the needs of the project, and we can get that done. Let's plan for it ahead of time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because you said there, like, what's the placement, and that's an important part. And like, what is the maximum size of an installation that you could put on a wall or off of the ground or off the ceiling?
Yeah.
To be able to know, how do I have to light this, and what material should I consider for this area?
Yeah.
So that
or are you restricted by the elevator?
Mm.
Like, how big of a piece can you get up here? Or do we need to hire a crane to bring it in from the outside, or things like that? So there, I mean, there's so many logistics that go into
Yeah.
it too, to ensure that the best result is achieved. But I think, in talking about lighting, that's also kind of an exciting layer of design too. And again, something so important. You could have the most beautiful and expensive material on the floor, on the wall, whatever. If it's illuminated by a terrible light, you might as well just not even install it, because it's not going to render in the way that you want it to. It's not going to feel the way that it should. So, kind of going back to experimentation, and, that being a large component and part of our studio is, one thing that we're going to be doing in the near future, is developing sort of a lighting lab. So collaborating with a lighting company and creating almost a showroom within our studio that has every kind of different kind of light that you could imagine.
Cool.
Whether that's a pin light or a spotlight, or a 30-degree light or a 60-degree. Is it this temperature? Is it a wall washer? Is it a step light? So, we as designers can ensure that we're specifying and including the right type of light, the right amount of light. I mean, we work with lighting consultants as well, who are incredible resources on projects. And I think, that's money well spent when you bring in a lighting consultant.
Yeah.
However, it's our responsibility too, as interior designers, to either collaborate or to select the appropriate lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's just kind of a small thing that we're doing on our part and in our studio, is developing this space where we can understand what types and qualities of light will be the best suited to different spaces, to create different emotional responses, to illuminate our artwork in the best way.
Yeah.
Is it from a safety consideration of step lights on stairs or things like that? But yeah, that's kind of a near phase in the studio that we're working toward as sort of a valuable kind of offering in what we do.
Yeah, you want to enhance the assets that are going to be inside there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it only makes sense that if you can make it a one-stop shop, people can appreciate that.
For sure.
You're making their experience as a client way easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so I appreciate all of this. I want to I feel like we could continue down the path of the design elements, but let's talk about what life looks for you nowadays, 13 years later.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the 6 directors at the practice. Outside of the practice, how do you allow yourself to decompress? What does family look like? What is your life like outside of practice?
Life these days is very much trying to slow down, I think, a little bit outside of work. I mean, it's such a fast-paced industry and such an exciting industry. I mean, no day is the same. No project is the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's, just such high energy in office and in our projects. And as I mentioned to you, I have 2 kids now, one 4 and the other just under a year. So I think just, being present and slowing down. And it's hard, I think, especially in today's age where we're so connected at all times to our work, whether that be on your phone or, checking an email or reviewing one last thing. But trying to, be intentional of carving out that kind of time with them to be just there, to have fun, to, disconnect from work. And it's funny too, because I feel like interior design is something that's not only my career and my job, but it's also kind of a hobby in a way too. So as I mentioned before, my husband and I, we've done a handful of projects of renovations on our own, whether it was a condo or a triplex or just recently our house. And then upcoming a new adventure in kind of the countryside and building a house there. So it's hard to kind of turn it off completely outside of work. It just kind of feels like it bleeds
infiltrates
from one day to the next.
Yeah.
But I do find I just find so much joy in it, and I feel so fortunate and grateful that I do have a career that gives me so much joy and energy, and I wake up excited to, jump into the next thing every day.
I'll tell you that I in many ways, I feel like I just cut you off, but sorry.
That's okay.
But I feel like, in some families, there's the heirloom of like a blanket, like our quilt, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gets passed down through generations with, everyone's added onto this quilt in some capacity. What you're describing is like a much larger quilt. Right? You go from the experience of developing a few of these own projects for yourself to now going and looking at establishing a new family home for the whole family, that now your son is going to be involved in some capacity of developing.
Absolutely.
And he'll, similar to the way that you described your grandfather,
mm-hmm.
And coming up with ideas for solutions of the vaulted ceiling.
Right.
Your son will be able to draw upon a similar type of memory as you go and start to design your
mm-hmm.
own home, which is pretty circular and beautiful too, right? So
you're very right. Yeah.
There's your quilt.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a great anecdote there.
Well, look, life can be like that. I think one of the main reasons why we wanted to do this podcast was to be able to give people the opportunity to stop and think back and reflect upon what they've done with themselves in their career,
mm-hmm.
But also to think about what the future is going to look like, because when you talk about it, you talk it into reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty special thing to be able to have the luxury, but also the hard work and dedication to be able to create for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, Marti, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
My pleasure.
I hope that the transition back into work, what we didn't really talk about was Marti's finishing up her mat leave right now and going back to work. And so I hope that the transition back into work is as smooth as you would hope it would be. And it gives you a new take on the creative juices that have been brewing for the last little while.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to keeping in touch and hopefully sharing some connections and furthering that relationship. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to come and chat about design. It's what we love to do, and love to share ideas and see how we can continue to build relationships and support one another in this wonderful, wacky, wild industry that we're in.